Scribbity-bop-a-doo-wop. Welcome to Creative Block. We're your hosts, Gene.
And B, we interview people in the animation industry about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam. I can talk.
We asked people on Twitter if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
And today with us, we have Anthony Holden.
Hi, everybody.
Yay.
Thanks for having me.
So Anthony, I met you through internet like a really long time ago, back in the Tumblr days.
Yeah, before the mass exodus.
I know, right? I was reading your comics and I was like, wow, this guy is so good. And I was like a fan. And then later, like, we actually really recently ended up working on the same show over at Sony.
Yeah.
So let's ask you a bunch of questions, and you're gonna have to talk a lot.
Like a lot.
So tell us about the moment when you first kind of realized that you wanted to do art as a career, and the moment when you were like, oh, animation is going to be the thing that I'm going to do.
So if I were to boil it down to like single moment, I guess like the funny thing for me is like, I think like most people that I've worked with, we're supposed to be drawing while we talk.
Yeah, but it's okay if you don't draw as much.
So no, you're okay. So like most people that I've worked with, I feel like have been in this place where they're like, oh yeah, you know, like from the time I was a child, like I definitely knew that I wanted to do animation.
Yeah, that.
And like, especially like friends of mine that work in the industry who grew up in California, I've heard a lot of that. And I grew up in North Carolina. So like, you know, I loved cartoons, but the idea of doing it as a career was like completely foreign to me. And so I guess the short version is when I was in school, I was studying Japanese. I was a Japanese language major.
Oh, wow.
And I went to Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. And I was on campus one day and I picked up like the on-campus magazine and they had a feature on BYU's animation program. And I was like, there's an animation program? Oh, we're all robots, you guys. Okay.
That's right.
So I was reading this magazine and I was like, animation program, and like you can major in animation. Like I didn't know that was a thing that you could do. That was new to me. So it was like at that point I decided to research it, and I took an intro to animation class, and it was the first time in my life. I mean, I had drawn and doodled a lot as a kid, but I had never beyond like a flip book in like a school assignment. I had never like done actual animation and like made drawings move and come to life. And like I took that one intro class and was like, this is amazing. You know, this is like, I want to do this. And I didn't know like if I had chops, like I didn't know how competitive things were, but like I knew I wanted to try.
It is funny how you kind of have to be told that it's okay, you can do this. Like I feel like everyone had to go through that at some point.
Yeah, like I was waiting for some permission, right? Like
yeah, well, you know, it's like I think historically it's considered like the starving artist. Like there's a stigma about it, and a lot of parents probably are like afraid of letting their kids actually get into it, and so it's like it's not until you know that it's even an option that you kind of let yourself follow that path.
Right? Yeah, like I never would have. I mean, as much as I enjoyed drawing on my homework, like I never ever would have been like, you know, I'm gonna do this for a living. Like it just never would have occurred to me.
That's so interesting. Would you say like how old would you say you were when you took that intro to animation class?
26, 25.
Oh, cool.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So you were studying Japanese all the way until that point, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's so cool. And okay, maybe I'm going to jump around a little bit, but at that time, did you already go to Japan or not yet?
Yes. Yeah. So like when, I mean, I guess it's no secret that I'm a very religious person. And I had served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, and like, I think, you know, it's a common set. Like think of like the Book of Mormon musical, right? Like the white shirt, the tie, the black name tag. Like I literally did that. I think
it's all true.
Like and in the musical, don't they like go to Africa, right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So like I didn't do that, but I went to Japan. I was in rural Japan in Hokkaido, like up in the north.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
And that is where like I fell in love with Japan and Japanese culture, and like I mean like I was a weeb before that.
Yeah.
So And then like actually getting to live there was pretty awesome.
And that's a dream.
And so that's when I came back and was like, and decided that I wanted to try. Essentially what happened is when I was leaving Japan, so the way that it's structured for missionaries that serve for the church, there's like all these young people in their 20s, and then they usually have like an older adult couple that kind of like provides guidance and like, you know, helps those kids sort of know what to do and like gives assignments and stuff like that. And so I interviewed with, they call him a mission president. And so I interviewed with my mission president before leaving. And he was like, well, Elder Holden, because that was my name then.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, Elder Holden, you know, what do you think you want to do with your life? And I told him that I wanted to do newspaper comic strips.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, that's cool. So you already kind of knew you wanted to do art a little bit.
Well, like that was the dream, right? He was like, what do you think you want to do with your life? And, you know, I kind of was like, well, I mean, like, if I'm being totally honest, like I wanted to be Bill Watterson, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to do Calvin and Hobbes, and I wanted to make like a high fidelity, cool comic strip. And he like looked at me dead in the eye and goes, that's not a thing.
Oh no. Oh, okay. Wow.
Oh, and like at first I was kind of mad at him.
Yeah.
I was like, you can't do that to me. Like you're shooting down my hopes and dreams and stuff like that. But like this was in 2004 when like newspapers were in serious decline, right?
Right. Yeah.
So like his comment was really kind of prescient, where like, I mean, the idea of like being a newspaper comic strip artist is like, that really isn't a thing anymore, right?
Right. Yeah, totally.
So hard. Well, it's like web comics. That's probably the closest thing.
Right. Yeah. But you know, and even that is like a really dubious,
yeah.
I mean, like if you got in at the ground level, you know, if you're like a Scott Kurtz, or if you're, you know, the Penny Arcade dudes, like,
or Homestuck,
you can make that work. But you know, the idea of drawing a comic strip like The Far Side, or like, it wasn't going to happen. That was not a reality that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So he shot me down, which I'm glad that he did, because then it forced me into this place where I was like, well, what else am I good at, right? Like, what do I have other skills?
I can perfectly speak Japanese, but is that even a skill?
And so, like, I mean, after living in the country for 2 years, and because it was, I think, a more rural location in Japan, I feel like I got the chance to maybe like practice Japanese a little better than maybe somebody who had like the out to use English with people.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like I definitely did not have that option. And so, yeah, that was like when I was like, man, what else am I good at? Like, I don't know if I have other skills. And I was like, but I mean, I really, really, truly loved learning Japanese. Like the experience that I had learning Japanese was awesome. And learning about the culture and like doing all that stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I could definitely, like I could go to school for that, right? Like, and so like my goal at that point was to become a teacher. I wanted to go to school and like, you know, teach Japanese like at the collegiate level. So that was the track that I was on when I discovered that article that like put me in an animation space.
That's so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah. So like your experience, because like I've visited a couple times. I mean, V lived there for what, a year, right?
I was there for 2 years. Yeah.
You were there for 2 years. V was there for a year. I've been there for a total of like 4 weeks. And like, I'm very jealous because I would love to live there for even a year, even a month, really. Like but like, do you kind of settle into a groove? And like, were there moments where, see, you're fluent in Japanese, which probably helps, but the idea of living there kind of terrifies me because it's like, how do you solve basic things? But I assume even if you know Japanese, there's still probably moments.
Okay. So, but here, like the thing is like, I didn't know. I mean, I knew as much Japanese as anybody that watched a lot of anime as a teenager.
Okay. Got it.
So it's funny because like, so the way that it works is that there's a missionary training center in Provo, Utah, which is actually like, it's in the same town that BYU is. And so like I had gone to the mission training center and they teach you basic Japanese as much as they can for about 12 weeks.
Oh, that's cool.
So like I got there and there were like a bunch of these kids that were like, yeah, like I studied Japanese in high school for 4 years. So like, you know, no offense, but like I'm way good at this or whatever.
Oh God. Yeah.
I know all the katakana and all the hiragana or whatever.
Oh man.
And you're like, whoa, you did all that. But it's like literally by day 2 or 3, like everyone was in the same space. They're like, okay, cool. Like, you know, the 4 years of studying so like, I had 12 weeks of basic language training where they taught us like a few cultural things and then like basic grammatical structure. And then like the awesome thing about being a missionary is that your literal job is talking to people, right?
Oh, great. Yeah.
So like, it's like my whole job was to go there and be like, hi, like, have you ever heard about Jesus? And in like a non-Christian nation like Japan, like people are like, no, I don't know anything about Jesus. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. Like,
yeah,
you don't know anything. Like, we have so much to talk about. And the really one-dimensional way of doing that is being like, hi, I am a robot here to teach you only about one thing. And if you try to go off topic, like, I'm going to steer the conversation back to, scriptures.
right, yeah.
But like the human way of doing that is being like, so who are you? What are you into? What's going on in your life right now? And like, when you're talking to teenagers or when you're talking to like grandparents that had like, some people I admit had like lived through World War II and stuff like that. And like,
oh, wow.
You talk to people that are in college, you talk to people who are into music, who are into art, people who work like a boring desk job. You talk to all kinds of people about all kinds of stuff. And like, I guess like I was forced into becoming conversant because I'd be having conversations with people and they were constantly saying words that I didn't know.
Right.
And so I'd be like, I don't know what that is. And then they'd explain it to me. I'd be like, oh, that's like this. And they're like, yeah, exactly. So I'd be learning new vocabulary all the time.
And did you make friends that you're still in contact with now?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I have some unanswered emails sitting in my inbox from friends right now that I have been ignoring for a couple of days.
Oh, no.
I know how that feels, except you must be like way better at Japanese than I am. I mean, I know for a fact that you are.
Okay, this is awesome right here. This is like muscular boo-boo.
Oh, sure. I was going for yogi. Boo-boo is okay. So I'm working on Jellystone, and so I'm actually very well versed in Hanna-Barbera characters right now.
Okay, it's funny that somebody had like given that prompt. It was like, draw Hanna-Barbera characters in anime style, and I was like, I've literally done that job when they hit me up for that like a few years back.
Right. Yeah. I know too much about all the obscure Hanna-Barbera characters that exist right now.
Oh, it's so funny.
I'll forget it all in a month. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a crazy life experience. Like I love that.
But like, honestly, like, I think that sort of thing is like super good life training.
Yeah.
Because like, how many times have you been on the job and been like, I don't know how to do this?
Right.
Like in a professional capacity, I feel like that happens to me all the time.
Right.
And even when it's a thing that like, you think you know how to do, like, I know how to storyboard, but like or like, I know how to design a character. But the reality is that like, even when you are fairly expert at something like that, like you're constantly being given like new challenges and stuff that you'd never thought to try before.
Mm-hmm.
So like having that life experience where it's like, man, I honestly don't know how to do this, but I can figure it out.
Yeah,
it's like, I don't know, it was
right. That kind of like resilience or kind of like thinking outside the box.
For sure, it was formative in more ways than one.
Yeah, we had a guest recently who went to New Zealand on a whim for 2 months and like came out of it seemingly just like a happier, much more fulfilled person. And so I think it's really important to I mean, right now, obviously we're all stuck at home, but hopefully eventually we'll be out of this. And I think it's really important for like everybody to like try to go live elsewhere and like do things and not just stay like in their hometown.
Yeah, man, like do stuff that makes you uncomfortable. Like that's part of what makes art interesting, right? Is like having experiences that you haven't had before.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's great too, that like to get that experience as soon as possible. Like I feel like it's always kind of like a little bit maybe harder like later when you're more set in a routine or like one is set in one's ways. I definitely felt also like when I was like in my early 20s, like, okay, I got to backpack and like leave with like no money, no nothing, and just like go up on a train and like visit Europe or whatever, kind of stuff. Sure. But let's bring it back to you and school and intro to animation. So how was how long did you study animation, and so what was the college name again?
So it's Brigham Young University,
and
it's in Provo, Utah, which is like a little bit south of Salt Lake City, like maybe an hour south of Salt Lake City. It's like truly in the middle of nowhere.
And in their program, did they have like what was the program like? and how was your experience in college, like meeting other people that were doing animation with the teachers and all that?
So like the cool thing to me was like, so BYU had like a little bit of a history of like, they had won several awards at that point in time. And like the big thing that they were doing that was kind of different from Cal Arts especially, was the idea of doing group films, where instead of like doing your own individual project, like the way that the program was set up was that like each graduating class would have a pitch party where every student would come and like pitch their idea for a film.
Oh, that's cool.
And then they would vote on it, and like the one that, you know, got the most votes, that like the most people were excited about, like you'd nominate somebody to be the director, and like you'd all work on a film together.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that like, you know, they win so many awards, is because they submit to festivals and as like a student production, but like they're really highly produced.
Oh, nice.
Because they're made by like, you know, teams of like 20 to 40 students.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's like a mini production.
Exactly. And so like, and the cool thing too is because they're like, at this point, there are so many BYU alum that have gone on to other studios. Like the school has relationships with a bunch of studios. And so like, as a student, they would send in folks from Pixar and from Dreamworks and from Sony that would like come in and like, you know, they would look at your story reel, or they would like talk to your people who were trying to like learn effects, and they would, that kind of stuff. And that kind of mentoring I thought was really cool. So that was, to me, one of the major pluses. One of the drawbacks was that it's a highly technical program. And so like, I didn't know this. Like when the program was sold to me, they were like, hey, you know, we have like this really high placement rate, you know, like upwards of 90% of our graduates end up getting careers in the field. And I'm like, man, that's like a really good percentage. And I'm a person who at that point in time was like married and expecting a child.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a college student, I was like, I need to be able to get a job when I'm done with this.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so like hearing that was like really galvanizing for me. I was like, man, yeah, I want to be able to get work when I graduate. And so I entered the program, and then found out like a lot of the work that people were getting were like TD positions, right? Like rigging, shading, lighting, texturing, and stuff like that.
I see. Oh, so that's what you mean by like technical? You mean the more like CGI side of okay.
Exactly. More like, and even like into like the programming type stuff. And I was like, oh, this is maybe not what I thought it was.
Right.
Which I want to draw Jean as a witch too.
Please. Please do.
But yeah, so like to me, the interesting thing was, because the program was so young, I sort of was able to like come to professors and be like, hey, like I see what you're trying to do here, and I respect that, but I don't want to do it.
You're a little rebel.
Yeah, a little bit. And not in like a rude way, but like, I guess, yeah, like I came to them and like, they were pretty open to that. Cause like I had ideas, and I was like, hey, like, this is, I think what I want to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd be like, hey, this is the class, and like, these are the requirements, but like, instead of doing your assignment, what if I did this? Right. And they would be like, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's cool. Right. Like you can do that.
And that's funny. I did the same thing when I went there. This is all.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah,
I was just thinking about that too. Like
it's very familiar.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, I don't know, like to me, and this is the thing that I say to students all the time whenever I like go visit colleges and give this talk, is like your education is yours, man. Like don't let somebody tell you what to do, right?
Yeah, you're paying for it. You should be able to kind of, to a degree, like decide what your curriculum is, like what you're studying, you know?
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know. I believe in that type of, and I was lucky that I had professors that were like reasonable enough with me.
Yeah, me too.
That they were like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Like you can do that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I felt very lucky to have had that type of experience, and got to, in a lot of ways, be like, what if I made a comic instead of doing your assignment? Or
yeah.
Or like, what if instead of participating in your group film, I made my own bad 2D animated short?
Yeah.
And they were okay with that, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is cool. Yeah, but it takes a certain confidence to be able to even like push for that. And,
man, yeah, I was so foolish. It's so funny to like, it's in a certain way, I was like glad to have like the big fish, small pond experience. Cause like, I don't know if I would have had the guts to try that somewhere else. Like if I had been in a place like Cal Arts, like I think I would have been too intimidated to try anything wild like that.
Absolutely. I think about that a lot. Yeah. It's like, I feel like I went through a similar path, and it's like, I feel like I had the right dose of validation at the right sort of tempo. Because otherwise, because I thought about applying to Cal Arts and it just was too expensive and too far away and everything. But yeah, man, it seems like, I feel like
I didn't even know it was a thing until I was almost graduated. They were like, "Oh, by the way, there's also this other school." I'm like, "What? No way!"
Oh man, that would have been great.
That's so funny.
No, it was like it wasn't even an option, and so like I think about what my life would have been, but I might have just burnt out. I might have just been too like, "Oh, I'm never gonna make it." Okay.
I had the same experience with Gobelin too, where like I didn't know that was a thing until I was like maybe a senior, and then I was like, oh, look at all these crazy monsters and like they're wild French animation, like I've never seen anything like that, and these people are, and then they were like, yeah, there's a limit, like, you know, they don't want old people applying to their school. I was like, what is the age limit? And I think it's like 28, right?
I mean, back when I applied, the age limit was 25.
Yeah, so like I was already well past that. I was like, cool, so I'm old by their standards.
God, that sucks. I didn't know that. That's insane.
It's really, I don't know exactly. It's kind of I think they've changed it now, because now I'm going to try to keep this short, but Gobelin used to be almost public school. It was half private, and then recently it got entirely privatized. I think the French government is kind of starting to drop a couple of schools here and there because they're like, okay, well, there's, politics. Anyway, so I think now they're kind of opening the school more, and they actually have an international section now, because at the time when I was in Gobelin, it was like you had to speak French because all of the teachers, or at least most of them, didn't really speak English that well, or couldn't. Well, there was that, but the age limit of 25, I think, is because I don't know. I think it's probably
they want young, flexible people who are ready to learn. They don't want to try and teach old dogs new tricks.
I think there's definitely a part of that, yes, and also
that makes sense.
I think there's also probably like the idea that if you're, I don't know, like it's hard. Yeah. Anyway, I think there's probably an elitist belief behind that as well. So, but I guess now like they're kind of shedding that too. But yeah
that's crazy.
That's good, man. Because like, I don't know, I think it's important to have like capital A art animation. Like I think that's an important thing that exists. But yeah, man, like we're making cartoons, like you can't get too high and mighty, right?
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, I feel like, especially because that was something that we talked in a podcast before, but because I feel like we're craftsmen as like animators, or like as part of a team. I feel like we're closer to a craftsman than to an artist with like a capital A.
Yeah, totally.
And I think, yeah, in that regard, it's like good to stay humble.
For sure.
The age limit thing is weird to me because like it just adds to this notion that like if you haven't landed a job by a certain age, then like you haven't made it, or like you're never gonna make it.
Oh man, I feel like that conversation pops up on Twitter so much. Like,
yeah, it's exhausting.
Yep, it's like, hey, I'm 30 and I still haven't gotten my job. I'm like, dude, I got my first job when I was almost 30, so like, don't feel bad.
Yeah, and I'm going through that right now. Like I'm feeling like I'm in my 30s now, and I just keep feeling the pressure of the ticking clock and like being like, oh no, I haven't gotten to where I want to be. But it's like nobody put that's all in my head. That's all in everybody's head. And
for sure. It's why have I done so many jobs, but like I've never gotten to direct a such and such, or like how come I'm not an art director? Why am I not a production designer yet? Why have I not been tapped for some kind of supervisory role? Why?
That's exactly what I'm going through right now. It's really I was just telling V about it.
I've been around the block. I have credits, right? Like,
yes.
You definitely. I mean, out of anybody, I feel like you should. And so it's both disheartening, but also kind of validating to know that you're going through the same sort of thing.
And honestly, like, I mean, if we're being totally frank, like, I mean, it's because I can tell you exactly why. It's because of the decisions that I've like consciously made with my career. Like,
right.
So my first like out of school studio job was at Dreamworks, and I started. This is a very cute Hobbes from memory.
I'm amazed that I remembered how to draw Hobbes and Calvin for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna murder Hobbes too. Let me see if I.
You should be an expert, right?
We're all gonna try this.
I didn't bother trying to do it in Watterson's sexual style.
But I started at Dreamworks, right?
Yeah.
And ended up like the cohort that I started in was with Matt Brawley, who's creator of Amphibia.
Right, yeah.
And like I got there on my first day of work and I was like, I am almost a decade older than this dude and he is drawing circles around me. Like, what am I doing here? I was like immediately had imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This kid who had like, he graduated high school, went to like a year or two of Cal Arts and was like immediately recognizes the genius that he is and like got this job. And I was like, I am a 30-year-old man who fell into cartoons on accident. Like, what am I doing in the same room as this guy? And it's like, it took me a while to come to terms with the idea that like the experiences that I had had and the life that I had lived, which was like very different than his, right? Where like I had, lived abroad. I had served as a Christian missionary in a non-Christian nation. I had, like I grew up in the American South and like, I'd gotten married. I had 2 children, right? Like
yeah, you're living your life.
All those experiences that I was like, man, like I feel like such a loser that like I took so long to get started in this career path. But then like after thinking on that for a while, I was like, wait a minute, like these are assets. Like,
yeah,
I'm a different person who has like lived a different life. This is so wrong.
Yeah, what's going on there, V? Can we talk about that?
You're so mean. It's just his paw. I can't believe you did this.
No. That's I've done nothing. I just like I love like his long legs. It's so like
he looks like he'd be 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Because like to me the key design element of Calvin and Hobbes is that Hobbes has like this long tiger torso with like, these little legs.
Oh,
right?
The tiniest legs.
I do not remember these characters.
Oh man, and this is like a Walt Kelly like pogo pose here that I put him in.
Yeah.
So good. I love it. I love that. Like, dude, you have a photographic memory, or you've read a bunch of them.
My son was definitely just reading them this afternoon.
I just got the collection, like the big like library edition, because I realized.
Did you find the hardback ones? They don't exist anymore.
I didn't want the hardback. Because the soft cover one is broken up into 4 books, and I wanted something that's easier to actually read than like this giant heavy.
Yeah, so I've got the hardcover ones on my shelf, and they're beautiful. But like every time my son is like, "Can I read Calvin and Hobbes?" I think to myself, I should just buy the floppies so that he doesn't ruin them.
Yeah, you have to like give him like plastic gloves and like a mask, and you're like, use these tongs.
Yeah, I'm like, you may read this, but you may not eat snacks while you do, right?
That's so funny. We had comics like that in at home too. Like when I was a kid, like there was some comics that were like, no, you can't read those. They're too precious. I'm like, okay, right. but I'm a grown kid. It's like, no, you're 7. We don't trust you.
Comics need to be loved. They need to be broken in and, wrinkled. I think that like there are books that I read and reread, and they're a little like Bone is really kind of a little bit messed up for me, but like it means that I've been reading it. It's been loved.
Yeah, man. And like if there's something that's worth studying, that like Jeff Smith's cartooning, that dude is masterclass.
Yep. Yeah, I reread that recently. I've been rereading a lot of stuff. This actually will segue nicely into the next sort of category is I reread.
Oh man, I've been rereading Dragon Ball lately.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, I was wondering if you were done with your story of your first job. I kind of wanted to keep kind of like listen to you and your career really fast, and before we hop into the next section.
Yeah, we'll come back.
Oh yeah.
And I also wanted to ask you, like, when do you think you started your Tumblr? Like, were you in school when you started kind of being active on Tumblr? Because I remember like seeing your Tumblr posts. I was in Japan. It was probably 2015, and I was like, wow, he's so famous and so good, and this guy like can do everything, because you animated too at the time, like your comics were animated, and you also posted like gifs of animation and all that stuff. So
yes, I found that I've not had as much time to do that lately, because animation, like I love animating so much, but it's just like so time intensive.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I sort of semi-animated the Kickstarter video that I'm launching tomorrow.
Woohoo!
Very excited.
It's animated on like 3s and 4s, or like you know, sometimes even worse than that in places.
The anime style.
But it's some of the, like, I was like, oh man, I miss doing this. I wish that I did more of this. But yeah, so like I spent 2 years at Dreamworks, and it was at a time when, to answer your Tumblr question, when I started at Dreamworks, everybody was still on Blogger.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh man, yeah.
So everybody was on Google's Blogger, and then that's like Tumblr came up in like 2011 or 2012 maybe.
Right. Yeah,
that sounds right.
I want to say, and so like around that time, it was like the first time that somebody had explained to me the genius of social media, right? Which is like with Blogger, it's like you could put something up, but like unless somebody big and famous, like Drawn and Quarterly up in Canada, like like unless they had discovered you and decided that like they were going to pass you on, nobody would find your URL, right?
Right, yeah.
Right.
But with a platform like Tumblr, it's like you post something, and if somebody else likes Naruto, for example,
yeah.
I love Naruto.
Oh, we're gonna get into our anime and manga talk.
Yeah, and if somebody likes the thing that you did, then like they reblog you.
Yeah.
And then it's like everybody that follows that account sees the reblog, and if they like it, they reblog, and it spreads everywhere. I was like, that is genius.
Yeah.
That's genius. That's way better than, Google's Blogger, which like was it was like the proto internet, right? Or the proto social media movement.
Yeah, they were figuring it out as they went.
Yeah, it was the kind of thing where like, if there was an artist that you liked, then like you would link all your artist friends in like the sidebar of your page, right?
Right, yes.
Yeah.
And like that was cool, but it was like hard to get exposure.
Yeah. I think young artists that are coming up now with all these, with like programmed to care about followers and reblogs and all this stuff, like.
Oh man, yeah. In a certain way, I think that's so hard for them.
It's so hard. I see like young artists that are really talented, and they'll like leave Twitter for a few days, and they come back and they have this guilt, and they're like, guys, I'm so sorry. I haven't been tweeting for like a few days. Like my grandma died. And it's like, why do you even feel the need to apologize? Like, that's fine.
Yeah, dude, go live your life.
It's so crazy because they've grown up with it. Like the Zoomers have grown up with it, and they're just forced to care about follower count. And man, let me tell you, like, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Nope, it super doesn't matter. But yeah, so like that, like I did Dreamworks for 2 years, and the awesome thing about it was at the time when Katzenberg had announced their plan that they were going to do 3 features every year.
Ooh, yeah, I remember that time.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is insane.
It's insane.
And like the first experience that I had there, so I didn't work on Megamind, but Megamind was being released like soon after I had just started there.
Right.
And I just remember like talking to the crew who were like, they were talking about the release date and like this and like, and I had overheard some people talking. They were like, yeah, like it's still not, final mix is still not done yet. And I was like, dudes, like your movie comes out in like a week.
Oh man.
What do you mean final mix isn't done yet or whatever? And it's like hearing stuff like that. And then like the various experiences that I had while working there, where I was like, I think I had like this sort of rose-colored glasses idea about like how movies were made, and then like after working for like literally about less than a year or so, I was like, nobody knows how to make a movie.
Yeah.
None of us know what we're doing. Like I remember sitting around in a story room where I was like, I know a lot of these people that are like animation famous people.
Yeah.
Like not famous to the larger public, but like that, had like worked on like really high budget and well-known products. I'm like, man. And I remember looking around in a room and one time being like, collectively, we have like almost 100 years of experience in this room and we still don't know how to make a movie.
I love that.
Yeah.
But like, to me, I don't know, that's awesome. Cause it's like, if the formula is I've made a movie before, right? Like I know how to do this, and like you just make the movie that you already know how to make, like that's boring as heck, right? Like you come up with really awful stuff.
Right.
But yeah, when you enter that space being like, have I made a movie before? Sure. Do I know how to make this story? I do not, because I've never tried that before.
Right. Yeah.
But so like the cool thing about being at Dreamworks at that time is that the story department had bloated to like, there were more than 80 storyboard artists there.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, which is like a massive crew. And like for me, where it was like my first professional experience, like I didn't know that was massive. I was like, man, these studios sure have a lot of artists, but like that was
yeah, right.
It was particularly large at that time. And the cool thing for a young buck like me was I met so many people in the 2 years that I was there. And then ended up being like, my son had terrible asthma and I was having kind of a rough time living in Los Angeles, where I was like, we had 2 kids and I was like, and my wife doesn't work. She's a stay-at-home mom. So she was not like earning money outside of the house. It's not fair to say she doesn't work. She does the hardest job.
Yes.
Yeah. She's very busy.
But yeah, she's not like, we're a single income family, and I was I was making like intern wages, right? Because it was my first job.
Right.
And we had 2 kids and we were living in LA, and I just remember being like, I can't make this work. I don't know how to do this. And so we moved to Leica. I had a friend, Shane Prigmore, introduced me to some folks at Leica, and we moved to Oregon. And then after working at Leica, which was miserable, and we could talk about that another time, but I decided not to continue with them, but we liked the Pacific Northwest so much that I was like, man, like I don't want to go back to LA if we don't have to. And so I tried freelancing, and somehow by the grace of God, things have worked out for us here.
I'm always impressed by the fact that you've managed to maintain, I mean, it's the strength of your work, that's why, but it's still very impressive that you've managed to maintain a prolific animation career like remotely. Like, I think that's something that we're all going to start kind of facing during and probably after quarantine. Is it's just like, we don't have to be in LA, right? Like the city kind of sucks, and like we'd all rather be elsewhere. And so you're a shining example.
Right. Like it's awesome if I just remember thinking all the time, like this city would be so rad if I were a single dude who was like 22.
Right.
Sure.
But even then, I feel like LA for me is like, it's just so spread out, and like the metros are basically a no-go after 6 p.m. So it's like, I mean, I guess there's Uber, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's like for me, LA is not like the symbol of the party town for me. It's like, if you want to party, it's New York or like one of those capitals like Paris.
Well, even San Francisco is like way better suited
for
social life. Yeah.
But yeah, I totally feel you though. It's like,
So yeah, we decided to stay up here and somehow have made that work. And I think some of it has to do with like the strength of like the connections. Like it's that who you know thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And because I met so many people who then went on to so many different places, it's like I've had the opportunity to do lots of stuff with lots of different folks, which has been a tremendous blessing.
Totally. Yeah, that's awesome.
That is so great. Yeah.
V, what else did you want to ask on that?
I think, because so, and then like you would say like, and ever since then, you've just been like doing freelance work on with all the studios.
Yeah, with basically everyone.
All of them. Who have you worked for? Can you say, is it really everyone, or is it just
so it really is everyone, except I've never done work for, so Disney Feature doesn't do, up until pre-COVID times, they didn't do remote stuff. So like I had chatted with them a bunch of times, and have been invited back to LA on numerous occasions by various people to be like, hey, will you come do this? Will you come direct this? Will you come do such and such? And I'm like, honestly, like that sounds awesome. But whenever I would sit down and think about like, because we always make family decisions like that together because it affects everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And when we would sit down and like I would have an offer and be like, I could do, I could work on this show and like it's kind of high profile and they want me to direct and like that sounds awesome. And we would do like the pro and con thing where like you sit down and you're like, here's all the pluses and like here's all the minuses.
Mm-hmm.
And like all of the pros would be like, this is great for Anthony's career. This is great for Anthony's public-facing career. This is great.
Yeah.
And all the minuses were like, this is really bad for my family. This is really bad for this member of the family. This is really bad for, and like, it would be like,
man.
all the pluses would be like, this is great for my career and this is terrible for my family.
Oh, yeah.
And so because of that, like the decision that I've made, and like it's been like in a certain way, it's like professional suicide to be like, I'm not going to take on like these additional roles and I'm not going to take on these additional responsibilities. I'm just going to stay a story artist.
Right.
Is like not a great professional move, but like I have been present for my kids' lives.
Sure.
Exactly.
And like, I can't trade that for something else. Right.
100%.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, you placed your priorities where they matter, and that's good.
Right.
Can we get into some manga talk?
Yeah.
Finally.
Okay. You guys can talk
Can
about
I finally? God.
Inspiration time.
Asking about career goals and aspirations. Anyway, yeah. Well, but I think it all.
So Shonen Jump.
Anyway, I think it all ties in together. But because I'm a big fan of kind of like figuring out where people get their inspiration and what makes them excited. Because I think that question I want to ask you maybe up front even is like, was there a specific thing that you saw that really clicked for you and made you say like, I want to do this thing? Like it was either a moment in a series or just a show in general or a movie or something. Like what made you want to actually do this as a job?
Oh man.
Or pursue it, you know? So
like the stuff that like really knocked my socks off when I was, this would have been like it would have been like early 90s, like maybe 92 or 93. I had a friend who it was like my best buddy growing up. And his parents had a family friend who lived in Japan or who had spent time in Japan. And he came back with like a bootleg VHS copy of My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah.
And I had never seen anything like that in my life. And I was like, this is incredible in a way that my, 11-year-old brain was not able to articulate. This is landing somewhere between like Totoro and Mokona from Magic Knight Rayearth.
Yes!
Pikachu. Yeah, there's a little Pikachu in there.
Which we can talk about Magic Knight Rayearth in a minute.
Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite manga ever, and it's not really talked about.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what that is.
That was Totoro was a gateway for me, and it reminded me of my grandmama who had like made some recordings on HBO. She had given me again like a sort of a bootleg dub of like a VHS dub of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. And in a way that like my young brain was unable to like analyze and articulate, I was like, these look and move and feel different than the cartoons that I've seen.
Right.
And like I didn't know what it was, but like I mean a lot of it has to do with like the sort of like more cinematic approach, and like you could say like it's sort of like more of an adult flavor of cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean like adult in the sense that like it's like sex and violence, but like adult in the sense that like it respects your intelligence.
Totally. Yeah.
And there was something that was cool about the filmmaking of those. And like, again, as a young person, it's interesting to me to look back at those experiences that like, as like a 7-year-old watching Tom Sawyer, as like an 11-year-old watching Totoro, like I could intuit that it was different, even if I couldn't describe to you what was different about it. And then when I found out, I was, somebody was like, by the way, those are made in Japan. I was like, Japan? And that blew the lid off for me. And then I discovered like Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball, and like Magic Knight Rayearth was like a huge thing for me, because that was one of the first things that like I had sought out, like somehow I had heard of it. And then I bought, again, bootleg VHS tapes, because that's how you had to do anime back in the day.
Yeah, totally.
I bought them, like at like a comic convention, and was like, this is like, I had never seen anything like that. And like Rayearth blew my mind, because it like it was fantasy, but also sci-fi, but also magical girl, but also like it was, and it was like all those things mixed into one. And I was like, I didn't know you could do that, right?
How did this pass me by? I don't know what this, I guess I gotta look this up.
Magic Knight Rayearth is like, it's an older manga, first of all. So it came before Cardcaptor Sakura, which was a much bigger hit for Clamp than Magic Knight Rayearth was. And
thing,
Magic Knight Rayearth has like this really like shoujo manga style. Like they have beautiful eyes, beautiful hair, beautiful outfits. So
really soft rendering, right? Like,
yeah. And I feel like those are probably I know in France France, when they got their hands on like the okay to air anime and publish manga, like it was such cheap deals, so it was like such good money for the editors and the TV stations that it was just like boom, here you go. So we got all the IPs really fast. But I could see, for example, in the US, I feel like a manga kind of came a different way in the US, and that probably Magic Knight Rayearth is, because it's more like girly, probably they didn't see as much appeal as probably Shonen Jump, I guess. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, well, I think it's like a different type of appeal, right?
Right.
And it's like that. And that led me into the place where I was like, oh, like, you know, comics drawn by girls or whatever. And so like I got into like Takashi Rumiko.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ranma Nibun no Ichi, Ranma 1/2, and like Maison Ikkoku and stuff like that. That I was like, yeah, and it's interesting to look, because she was even writing for like shoujo publications, or she was writing for shonen publications, like she was writing manga for boys, but she's a woman, right? So she had this different perspective, and I was like, this is rad.
Yeah, her stuff is great.
So yeah, that led me down another rabbit hole, and I mean, yeah, I've never come up from that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, well, there's definitely, I can see that influence in what you do, and I mean,
like some of that stuff, like you really never ever escape. Like honestly, the first comics that I bought with my very own money was Jim Davis's Garfield.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like people love to crap on Garfield, but like Jim Davis is a solid cartoonist, right?
Oh my gosh, Anthony, I'm so glad you're saying that, because in the episode where Jean interviews me, I talked about Jim Davis and Jean made fun of me. So I'm glad we're on the same.
But like the thing about Jim is like you look at the solutions that he's come up with, and like to the modern eye, they look really like sort of boring and mainstream, but like he pioneered a lot of that look.
Yeah.
And the cartoons are super solid. Like they're not maybe really adventurous. It's not like Kureya and Shin-chan, right? Like Shin-chan is like weird and cool and exotic looking to a Western audience, right?
Yeah.
And like Jim Davis is like kind of, you know, it's like the vanilla ice cream of cartoons.
He's like, his work is so appealing. Yeah.
It's so appealing. And like, and it's funny to me because like, so I cut my teeth. Speaking of, this was the thing that I was scared of as a kid, and I'm still scared of as an adult, is the tooth crumbling to dust dream.
Oh my God. No. That's horrific.
But do you not have that dream? Have you never had that dream?
No.
My dream is I lose my teeth, but they don't crumble into dust. They just fall out of my mouth. Or sometimes I can feel them being loose, and I like pull them out, and I'm like, oh no, those are my adult teeth. And then I'm just, and I'm like, never mind. I'll just get like dentures.
Yeah, I hate my teeth. I could lose them.
So like the Jim Davis's Garfield and like Charles Schell's Peanuts and stuff like that like those were the first cartoons that I ever really loved. And like honestly, like I never have, and I don't think I ever will. And I've gotten to a place where I think it's maybe good that I never escaped those influences. Like that stuff will always be with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of like, yeah, man, when I first discovered like Toriyama, and I was like, man, Dragon Ball, like this is the stuff. Like, and I copied so many drawings of Goku, and like there are still some shortcuts where I'm like, I stole that from Toriyama, and like I'm not ashamed of that anymore.
100%. Like, it's so nice to look at his drawings. It's like they never get old. They never get old.
I don't know what it is.
Again, is a solid cartoonist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what I'm here for. And it's one of the reasons I landed on storyboarding, because I was like, oh, that's the job where you still get to draw in this era of like CG animation.
Right.
Like the job where you still get to do drawings is storyboards.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah. I reread through Dragon Ball recently, and it's like I've gotten more in touch with the stuff that I liked as a kid, because I think now that like I'm an adult, it has a different sort of feel to it, and it's more about like I'm trying to tap into what I liked about those things and reassess them. Like I rewatched Reboot recently just because I was like,
yes,
why did I like Reboot? And I watched it and I was like, oh, because it's actually a well-written show at a certain, like past a certain point. It's rocky in the beginning, but it's great. Like it has a lot of depth. There's all these themes of like post-traumatic stress disorder and like growing up. Like it's a really good show. And Dragon Ball is one of those where I've come to appreciate the original run of Dragon Ball so much more than Z, because I feel like Toriyama is like at his peak there. Like it's a mix of comedy and action, and it's like clever. It's not just like power levels.
The first as he's transitioning out of Dragon Ball and into Dragon Ball Z, and it's still fun and funny. That's peak Toriyama right there.
Yeah.
And also like, and it's funny because like the iterations that made it to the screen, like and there's definitely like the sort of like dude who drives a Nissan that has like spinning rims and like tinted windows and has a tattoo of Goku on his arm. Like I feel like there's that toxic masculinity view of Dragon Ball. But like honestly, Toriyama, like, have you seen any of the recent Dragon Ball movies?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're great.
Like Toriyama never stopped making jokes. It's all still jokes.
Yeah. Well, I love those movies because they don't take themselves so seriously.
Yeah,
like they're funny.
Yep. And like that's the Dragon Ball I love. Like I could take or leave, like the dudes that have like 15 abs or whatever, like
sure,
I could take or leave that stuff. But like, yeah, man, he's never afraid to make a joke, and I love that.
I agree.
He's always wanted to do gag manga anyway. Like he started with Dr. Slump, which was
Dr. Slump,
and that was his favorite thing, I think. And then he just kind of got roped into the battle manga. I think he was just like, please let me get out of this.
He wanted to quit it a lot.
So have you read, there's this really fascinating article by a guy named Ollie Barter who interviewed Torishima-san, who was the editor.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, he was Toriyama's editor back in the day, and he basically, do you remember the movie Moneyball?
Yeah.
Where is Jonah Hill like comes in and like teaches Brad Pitt like how to make a winning baseball team by using math.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so Torishima basically like comes to Shonen Jump and was like, I needed an editing job, but like I've literally never read manga in my life.
Oh.
And he basically like moneyballs manga and goes, hey, if you really wanted to make like a hit series, like these are the things that you should do. And so he basically pitched to Toriyama like the idea of like his ongoing battle manga where like you constantly have like rolling battles and there's like new villains and people power up and like they made that stuff up. Man, I wish I don't know where the link is. Anyway, the writer's name is Ollie Barter, Barder.
Yeah, I actually found the link. Very interesting.
Yeah, he interviews Torishima, and it is fascinating to hear him talk about like, I'd never read manga before, so like I read everything and it was all crap except for the stuff by Adachi Mitsuru.
Man,
wow,
the shade.
And then he's like, and so I figured like it was like a really easy space to break into because everything's garbage. And if you make comics like Adachi makes comics, which by the way, Adachi Mitsuru is like my very favorite mangaka of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to me, like when, to read that article where Torishima like calls him out. He was like, everybody's crap except this guy. And I'm like, yeah, that's totally true.
Man.
But he goes, because his comics are easy to read. And if you look at a lot of comics from that era, like late 70s to early 80s, like a lot of them, frankly, like regardless of whether the premise is interesting, like a lot of them are not very easy to read. Like they don't flow well on the page.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so one of the things that Torishima pulled from Mitsuru and from Adachi is he's like, dude, like first and foremost, make your comics clear. If your comics are clear, and that's why that stuff in Dragon Ball, it reads like early One Piece, right?
Yes.
Like One Piece now, don't get me wrong, like I'm so invested. I've been reading One Piece for more than 20 years.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be learned.
Like
sure.
I can't stop reading One Piece now because I have to know what happens. But like early One Piece is so clear because there was so much space to breathe in those panels. And now he's got so many characters and so much going on, like everything is crammed in there. And he's also at the mercy of like the anime production that like he has to stay ahead of them.
Right.
But yeah, like that sort of storytelling where it's like clear, easy to read panels. Sometimes in like an episode, Dragon Ball, like there would be a few blows exchanged, and like that would be the whole week. They're like, well, that's the comic this week, right? Like,
yeah.
this dude punches this dude, that guy punches that guy, and tune in next week, right?
Yeah, it's just raw and minimal.
Yeah. Like, and it's the kind of thing where, like, Gene, so I know you're a musician, right?
I am.
And so like, and I've played music since I was a teenager also, and it's like constantly the place that I'm battling with, both in like visual art and in like, you know, maybe songwriting or singing or things like that, is like you want to impress people with your skill.
Yeah.
I can play to this level, or like I can draw to this level, or, you know, that you want to impress people, right? With what you can do. And so you try to overcomplicate things, when in reality, like, man, some of the very best stuff out there is the stuff that's confident in being simple.
Yes. Those are words of wisdom that, yeah, we should imprint on the screen.
I agree. Yeah, it's better to make something that's like small and from the heart, and honestly just finishable. Like, you know, a lot of the time, like the bigger your project or sound or whatever you're trying to do, the bigger it gets, the harder it is to just like finish the thing. It'll never be good enough.
Right.
And then nobody's seeing it, so, you know.
Right. And then you get into your mind the idea that, like, if I can't produce this thing to like the level of a Ghibli film, it's not going to do. But like, honestly, like, make the thing you can make. And like, this has been for me, like, career wise, like some of the most frustrating experiences that I've had are like being in development and getting into a place where like it looked like things were almost going to happen. Like my show's almost going to go through. They're going to greenlight us, or like they're going to.
Yeah.
And then having that drop and being like, man, I'll never get to make a cool thing. Right. Like, I'll never get to make my TV show. Nobody's ever going to, but like, man, the place that I keep coming back to, and I'm always too scared to try it, but I think I really am going to try it next year, is to just buckle down and like make a comic, because a comic, right? It's like, it's a small scale thing that I can do by myself.
Yes.
I don't have to wait for somebody's permission to tell me they're going to bankroll it.
Yep.
And like, it'll be small scale, and it won't like have all the bells and whistles of like a major production, but like I'll get to tell a story that I believe in, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know you went through like development so many times. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I've and I really should wrap this in just a little bit because this is family.
Okay.
But you know,
right.
But yeah, I mean, I've developed with a variety of studios and helped out with development projects at like a variety of different studios. Some of them were my ideas, some of them were other people's ideas that they asked me to jump on. And I've definitely jumped on projects where I'm like, oh, this is doomed from the start.
Yep, yeah, sure.
And I've also been on projects where like it looked really good and really close. And the thing about like, for me, is like you have to like protect your heart, right? Where it's like, because if you get really invested in something, so like the most recent thing that I had passed on is I was developing Precious Rascals at Disney.
Oh wow.
Okay, cool.
And was feeling really good at it, and I was like, and like after having been burned in development so many times, I was like, man, I just don't know if I want to do this again. But I felt really strongly like I should try, and so I did, and I went back, and like I was talking to my wife about like how I wanted to approach it, and like I just remember like having this conversation with her where I was like, if I don't go all in on this, like I'm gonna feel bad that I didn't give it like a fair shake.
Yeah.
I was like, because the easy way is to be like, if I don't try very hard and then I get rejected, then I can be like, well, of course they rejected me. I didn't even try that hard, whatever, and I can just walk away.
Yeah, I get that.
But if I go, if I jump in with both feet, then it's like, man, like I might break my legs on this, right? And then break my heart.
Yeah, that's the one that doesn't heal.
Right, yeah, I mean, and it honestly is like the harder one to heal. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, I was just like, man, the only way for me to do this and feel good about the effort that I put in and like really make something that I believe in is to like believe in it with my whole heart and try my hardest. And man, it's exhausting to do Like it totally reminded me of my experience as a missionary, where I'm like, you're approaching people and being like, hi, this is the thing that means more to me than anything else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of it? And like, it's a really vulnerable position to be in, right? To be like,
right.
Whether that's like, you know, for me, it's like, hey, these are like my personal, like religious beliefs and ethical tenets that I've chosen to live my life by. Like, what do you think of that? And some people were like, you're an idiot. And you're like, man, that doesn't make me feel very good.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, lots of people were very respectful and same thing, like, you know, with development, especially for a show where I was like, Precious Rascals, I'm like, these people, like these characters are like literally based on my family. What do you think of them? It's like a really vulnerable place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. I would be too scared to ever do anything like that.
Yeah, and like I was for a while. I was like, I don't even know if I want to do this, but like I felt really strongly like I should try, and so I did. And it ended up not working out, and like I was obviously heartbroken, but like, yeah, I don't know. After going through that experience so many times, I was like, man, instead of being like, I have to make the next epic, like, so also sitting on my shelf in a beautiful box set next to the Calvin and Hobbes is Miyazaki's Nausicaa comics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, these are gorgeous, and it's a huge sweeping epic. And I don't have like the space or the bandwidth in my life to make that.
If only.
But can I make a cartoon? Right?
Yeah. Honestly, I really like that approach a lot, especially because I've been reading a lot of webtoons, and sometimes some of my favorite webtoons, the art is really simple, and that doesn't mean that the story is any less good.
Yes, right. And it's the thing that to me is like so thrilling about the way that you draw and tell stories, B. But there's like this cool like fearlessness to it where it's like, I agree. And the thing that I think is cool is like sometimes you let the warts show on a drawing, because like I've seen you draw and I know how you can draw, and sometimes I see you put up like a drawing that is like broken and you go, I'm not even gonna fix this, and I'm like, that is gutsy.
Yeah. And
I think that it's so cool, and it's the thing that's cool, and it's one of the things that's important to remember as a story artist, which is like, don't let the drawings get in the way of the storytelling.
I agree with that a lot, and I don't want to keep you too long if you have to go. But I was just gonna say, like, I feel for me the only reason why I managed to get to that point was because I was so lucky to get on Thundercats, where Victor, the showrunner, draws only like this, and seeing his confidence, since how he could just draw and not overthink anything, that was so inspiring to me. And thanks to seeing him do that, I started do that, and then he saw my drawings and said, that's cool. And then I was just like, just having someone that I really admired validate the just do it aspect of drawing. I think like that was really empowering, and I feel like I'm so lucky I got to meet someone like that, because it's hard to meet someone that will do that for an artist. You know what I'm saying? Like someone that believes in just the essence and just the passion in the drawing. So
well, and it's not about the bells and whistles, right? Like it's about like the and I think like honestly that's one of the reasons that like I enjoy reading manga so much, because the art is experiential. Yes. In a way that like Western comics are not always, right? Like especially like mainstream Western comics, like your Marvel and DC stuff, like those artists are like incredibly talented, but like I just love the feeling of like, man, in a manga, like when you feel like a dope, like, you know, right, like the drawing looks dopey, right?
Exactly. Oh, I love that so much in Toriyama's work.
And then like, and man, when you're feeling the action, like the draw, you know, the lines get all scratchy, and like the energy comes through, and like, man, like I love that kind of like symbolic representationalism.
Yes.
Because it lets you like feel the comics with your guts.
Yes.
Instead of just looking at them with your eyes. Like I believe in that drawing philosophy.
That is,
I like it too. Yeah, a lot of, myself included, I think a lot of artists get stuck in a rut of like style and perfectionism and aesthetic and making sure everything's perfect, but it really is much better to just keep things, like we said earlier, just keep things simple and like easy, so that you can do it longer and, you know, and more of it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we don't want to keep you any longer. You've already said a lot of awesome stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting things. You're a very interesting guy. You're a very talented guy. It's an honor to have you on our little show.
Thanks for inviting me, you guys. This has been totally fun.
Yeah, this was so fun. I mean, like, we'll see. We have so many people we want to have over on the podcast, but I would love to do another episode with you, like, way down the line, because I feel like there's so many more things that we could talk about.
Yeah, let's do it.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. And do you want to talk about your Kickstarter really fast?
Yeah, so I'm launching it tomorrow, and then as I was like looking at the like breakdown where it's like, how many days do you want to let your Kickstarter run? And I was looking at the calendar, and my wife was like, that ends on Thanksgiving. You can't have it end on Thanksgiving.
Oh no!
I was like, oh, good point. So it'll run from now until like the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah, so it's been, I think the last one I did was 2016, so it's been 4 years since I put out a new book. So collecting all new Precious Rascals comic strips into a new book, and then a bunch of new sketchbook stuff into Doodle Quest 3, which is third installment of the sketchbook collection. And then, fun little extras, bookmarks, prints, stickers, stuff like that. So should be a good
Very
time.
exciting.
That's so exciting. Oh my gosh.
I'm like in that space, how like that feeling, like even if you've pitched like 100 times before, like you still get nervous before your pitch meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like I'm in that space right now where I was like, I feel fairly confident that like this
you'll be fine.
Kickstarter will be funded, but like on the night before launch, like I'm real nervous.
No, you'll be fine. And I'm gonna bet that by the time this comes out, you will have already met your goal and then some. That's my bet.
Well, that's the thing. We have to like we'll talk later about scheduling, but like this was supposed to come out in December, but maybe we want to push it early.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, I mean, do what you got to do. Otherwise, like the book will still be out and available for people to get later too. So whatever.
Yeah. I got some of your books.
You guys are awesome. Yeah, no rush on editing this.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
I got some of your books on my shelf. I love flipping through them. I had your poster with like the adventures in my cube at Nick for the whole time I was there. V can vouch.
Yes.
So like I just opened up my closet to like look at what shipping supplies I still had, and I pulled out a box, and I still have a handful of those posters.
Really?
That I didn't know
the
that
folded
I had.
ones. Yeah.
Yep.
Those are great. Yeah. Well, your stuff just has so much life and it's very inspiring, and people will come by and be like, "Oh, Anthony Holden, right on." Just to toot your horn, like you're a name.
Wow, thanks, man. I feel so warm and fuzzy right now.
You're a name that like everyone knows and everyone is stoked to see, and so like
I feel like there's like all of the artists that I know have had that moment when they're like, "Oh, I hope Anthony Holden will follow me back one day."
Yeah. You're one of those people, man.
Yeah. It was a big day when you followed me back.
That's so funny. Like I was so thrilled to get to work with you.
Yeah, I was so thrilled too.
Our day has not happened yet, where Gene and I have been on the same project, but I have confidence that it will eventually.
I hope I get to work on whatever show you get to make.
Yeah.
That is my hope. But yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. I love.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me know when you guys want to have me back, if there's like more questions that we can get to, and we'll do it again.
Yeah,
anytime.
Totally. Thank you so much for being here.
Anthony.
Yep. Have a good night, you guys.
Thank you.
Have a good
you
night.
Too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
And that's our show. That was Anthony Holden. And tune in next time.
Yeah. Our next guest should be Louis Zong. And we're super excited to have him on the show because his life story is so interesting. Just like I feel so lucky that all the guests we've had so far have great stories to tell. It's so cool.
Well, I think everyone has an awesome story to tell, and it's just getting people to talk about themselves is the hard part, because I think artists don't want to talk about themselves. But everyone has a unique path to getting to where they are. But anyway, I was Gene.
I'm V, and thanks a lot for tuning in. And you know what? We're gonna do this. Like, hit that subscribe button.
Hit that subscribe button. Like, comment, subscribe. All right, that's it. I'm gonna go die. I'm gonna go jump off a bridge. Bye, everyone. I was gonna end on that. Bye.